Welcome to the Jedi Priestess podcast. Enter the temple of your heart. Remember who you are. Truth, beauty, love, eternal, nature, divine. Welcome, beloveds, to the second episode of the Jedi Priestess podcast. Welcoming you into this here and now. Let's begin with a grounding attunement. I recommend you find a comfortable seat, or perhaps you're laying down. I invite you to close your eyes, drawing your awareness, your attention, and your energy inwards. Taking a nice deep inhale through your nose, filling up your belly. And exhaling out of your mouth with a sigh or a sound. Let's do that again. Inhale, filling up. Exhale, letting go. Inhaling. And exhale, release. Continuing to breathe. With each inhale, calling your energy back from all time and space, from all people, places, situations, and conversations you may have overextended yourself. And with each exhale, allowing this energy to circulate throughout your body, releasing any excess into the ground beneath you. Feeling your body, tuning into how your body is feeling in this moment. Allowing yourself to be held by gravity, by the mother. Allowing yourself to feel supported and lifted by the Father, by the celestial realms. Feeling your energy both sinking and rising simultaneously. Feeling yourself expanding and contracting rhythmically as your heart beats. As all of creation is beating to this timeless rhythm. Feel your heart syncing up with the pulse of the universe. As you continue to arrive in this here and now, I invite you to tune into your heart and ask your heart how you're feeling today. And if there are any messages your heart has for you in this moment. Perhaps you place one hand on your heart. Thanking your heart for its courage and its strength, for its guidance. And see if there are any desires and intention that you have for this journey. Our intention can be so powerful. While I will be sharing my story, this time together is an opportunity for you to set an intention for something that you would like to activate within your being. And one of my greatest intentions for this podcast, for this space that is being created and held, is for you to be able to remember who you are and to connect more deeply with your truth, with your inner knowing, and with any qualities that you wish to embody more fully. May this space support you. May it nurture and nourish you so that you may plant seeds in the fertile soil of your heart. And may those seeds blossom and bloom through your awareness and your presence and your tender care. Taking this moment to set your intention, planting it like a seed in your heart. Let's take a breath together, inhaling and exhaling, letting yourself melt just a bit more into your body, into this moment. All of you is welcome here. All of you is welcome here. Thank you. When you're ready, opening your eyes, taking in your surroundings, appreciating the majesty of the miracle of sight, the ability to see, whether that's with our physical eyes or our inner eye, our third eye, perhaps our first eye. Honoring the miracle of sound, the ability to hear, of taste, of smell, of touch. Just remembering how miraculous it is that we have these bodies, this leading edge of technology, these human bodies, these incredible vessels that we are just barely beginning to understand their full potential and what they are capable of. Taking a moment to give yourself a big hug, to give yourself some love. We do so much Our energy and our attention is constantly being pulled at from 1,000 different directions. And again, one of the reasons that I'm inspired to share this podcast is to create a pause, a time and a space where we can release the doing and come more deeply into our being, to just be with ourselves, to love ourselves, to nourish, to care, to celebrate the beauty of who we are without needing to be anyone, do anything, prove anything, fix or change anything or anyone. For this time together, let us simply be and feel the preciousness of this moment. This is my invitation to you. Thank you for answering the call. If you are here, it's because you felt it. You felt the call, consciously or subconsciously. And I thank you because I believe one of the greatest things that we can contribute to the world is to be embodied, to be present and grounded, and to anchor those frequencies so that others can access them through our field. Because it certainly is not the norm at this point in time to be fully present and grounded and in one's body, aware. So I honor you because this is perhaps one of the most courageous acts, to be in your body and to be committed to feeling it all as much as you can. I believe this is the true warrior, not needing to fight nor defend anything, but to be radically committed to being embodied and to being with anything and everything that arises. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being a fellow traveler and ally on this path of awakening and remembrance. It is certainly not for the faint of heart. And I can imagine if you're like me, you wouldn't have it any other way. That's not to say that we're always 100% of the time present and feeling everything, but that is our commitment, that is our devotion to this path of self-mastery, of awakening the avatar within, so that we may be an inspiration, shining our light for others to be able to see the path more clearly, so that they too may find the way back home to themselves, unhooking from all of the programs and the beliefs that have them trapped in an identity that they didn't consciously choose. And sometimes we want to be trapped. I just like to let the option be available. Today, I'm feeling called to share with you a bit about my background, my origin story, to give you some context for who I be in this here and now and what has inspired me and the journey that I've been on and the way that I've navigated, and some of the awareness that I have gained, and a lot of the things that I have unlearned, and a lot of the being that I have unbecome. Where to begin? Growing up, as little as, I believe, 4 years old, I remember that I chose that I wanted to be an actor. And I believe that this was my really clever way of finding a loophole in the whole paradigm of who do you want to be when you grow up. I remember at even such a young age feeling like I don't want to be limited. I don't want to be put into a box. I don't want to have to choose just one thing. I want to be able to do it all. I want to do everything. I want to explore every possibility that I can. And somehow my little brain came up with this ingenious idea of, ooh, I know, I'll be an actor. That way I can be a queen and a secret spy and a wizard and a professor and anything that I could possibly imagine. That's all I had to do. I'll be an actor, and then that way I get to do all of it, but I didn't have to commit to one path of one thing for the rest of my life, because I definitely feel that my personality is suited to wanting to explore many different paths. So this was my goal. This was my aspiration. This was my dream, my desire, my intention for a big part of my life. I was so set and so sure of this path. And I believe that there are many reasons why I was naturally inclined to want to develop this craft of acting and to be able to express in this way. I believe one of them is what I just named, about wanting to have every possibility of every archetype available to me that I could explore and I could embody and I could experience. Another one is acting is perhaps one of the main places in our society where we are given permission to fully feel and express our feelings and emotions in a culture and society that presently doesn't fully allow for the full depth of the human experience as expressed through our emotions. So, acting is a safe way to be able to feel and express all of your anger and all of your sadness and your grief and your joy and your ecstasy and your longing and your silliness and your weirdness. Another reason is I've just always been curious about humanity and psychology. My father was a psychologist. He was a criminal psychologist, and then he took that into getting his doctorate in organizational behavior. So you could say that runs in the family. But I always remember being curious about what makes people tick and why people are the way that they are, and why some people respond in one way and other people respond in a completely different way. And what is it that has each of us be so unique? We are entire universes unto ourselves, and I've just always been so fascinated to understand what is happening over there with another being. And with acting is an incredible place to explore great intimacy with another person. Again, something that our culture is just now slowly beginning to welcome into the sphere of experience. Intimacy is such a rich topic, and I think something that terrifies most of us. But in acting, there is that level of safety that you have the character and you have the script and you have the play or the performance that you are working on together. And so you get to, in a way, hide behind that you are not necessarily laying yourself out there. Like, I'm not laying myself out there as Alexandra. I am being deeply intimate, yet there's a moment when there's a cut and the scene is over. And I get to release that moment and let it be what it is without what could possibly be the awkwardness of what happens after you vulnerably, transparently express yourself to someone. The true real risk of rejection. Although, of course, when it comes to acting, rejection is such a huge part of the path. Auditioning and putting yourself out there and the whole competition and all of the more distorted, shadowy side of the industry. So I guess you still don't escape that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Other reasons I believe I'm so drawn to this craft is it's such a meta representation of life, how in life we are all actors, we are all playing a part. In this lifetime, I am playing the part of Alexandra Mathews, and you are playing your part. And yes, this role is ever evolving and shifting. And we are in this live action play that is life, this great theater, this drama with tragedy and comedy and romance and the full spectrum. So with acting, it is a little reminder, I believe, from our souls, a way of kind of planting a seed that this is actually what life is. So when we can understand the craft of acting and theater and performance, we can apply those techniques and that awareness to our everyday life, that level of self-awareness that one develops when you are studying the craft of acting. How to truly listen to another, how to be aware of your body, your feelings, your emotions, how to identify your motivations, your hidden agendas, your intentions for why you're doing what you're doing or saying what you're saying. These are all extremely valuable skills. And I've been able to take all of these into my life and into everything else that I've done outside of acting. And for that, I am so grateful. The final one I can think of for now is that the art of storytelling, which is what acting and theater is, I believe is the oldest art that we know. I believe humans, since the beginning of any level of awareness, speech, movement, we've been telling stories since the beginning of time. That is the language of the cosmos, is story and myth and symbolism and archetype. It is so ingrained in our blood, in our DNA. It's just so natural. This is the way that we pass along information and that we connect with one another. And this is the way that we celebrate life and we honor life and the experiences that we have and the beauty of what we see around us. Myth, story is what shapes our lives. The stories that we're living in, that we're telling ourselves, the stories that we're subscribing to, whether we wrote them or they were passed down to us from our ancestors, from culture, from society. These stories determine the confines of our experience of what we believe is possible and not possible. And we're going to touch more on this as I progress, because this is such an important piece. The power of writing our own story, of creating our own mythos, of choosing what we believe and the story that we choose to tell ourselves, about life, about others. And I believe this life is so magical that depending on the story that we're living in, that we're believing, it shapes our perception of reality. And however we are perceiving reality then determines how we respond or react to the external world, which then, of course, becomes this feedback loop. How we respond then informs how others respond to us. And so we can have those self-fulfilling prophecies, or we can open up to such miraculous possibilities and experiences beyond our wildest dreams when we interrupt the old stories, the automatic scripts, the ways of being that have been passed down to us that are, by definition, limiting. All beliefs ultimately are limiting. But may we choose to continuously expand our vistas, our consciousness, to explore beyond the same old self-defeating stories of humans just being human. As if humans aren't the most badass, amazing, magical beings capable of anything that we put our mind to. Personally, this is one of my greatest dreams and desires for this life, is to create new stories that can inspire humanity to remember who we are as multidimensional beings, as children of the stars and stewards of this earth. So much more than what we've been told and what we can possibly imagine. And it's all perfect. Where we are in this current time and space is serving a purpose. It's serving the narrative. And from here, we can choose our own adventure about where we want this to go. Do we just blindly accept the stories that we're being given? Or do we choose that we want to write a far more exciting and inspiring and uplifting narrative that empowers all beings on this planet and in the cosmos to be liberated, to be free, to be happy, to be peaceful, or at least to have the choice or the awareness that there is a choice to choose something other than suffering. And the trippy part about all of this is on a quantum level, on a larger scale, soul level, I do believe that we are all choosing, whether we are aware of it in our human bodies or not. And so ultimately, no one really needs saving. The world doesn't need saving. It's just playing out its evolutionary tale, right? Universes are birthed and they die, just as everything goes through its natural cycle of creation. And while we're here on this earth, might as well play the game of activating our superpowers, having fun while we're doing it, not taking it all too seriously. And as I said earlier, being that beacon of inspiration. Since we're all here anyway, playing all of these characters, and we have the politicians, and we have celebrities, and we have all of this corruption and this whole narrative that we're playing out, since we're already choosing to play a game and we're engaged in this thrilling drama, this theater of life, let's just spice it up a little bit. Yeah, right? I mean, how many people do you know that feel trapped in their jobs, in their relationships, in their bodies, in some sort of a role that they would rather not play? And they feel like they don't have any other choice? Again, yes, I do believe some part of them is getting off on playing that role, and that is something that they are learning from. So not to invalidate or dismiss that we need to try to get everybody on some sort of super galactic superhero path, because every single path and every role is just as valid. Once again, I just want to even the playing field so that people know or feel that there is something more than just going to their job every day, giving all of their life force energy to something that they don't believe in. Of course, this isn't everybody, but a vast majority of people, right, are working as cogs in a machine, disconnected from their life force, from their sexuality, from their joy, living just for weekends, for vacations, if even that. There's so much pain and suffering in the world. And I believe one of the greatest ways that we can alleviate this is to bring in greater joy into our beings, into our bodies, because then we will be anchoring those frequencies on the planet and raising the vibration of the planet. And it will be activating and triggering other beings who are ready to also come online into their remembrance of who they are and what truly lights them up and what inspires them and what just gets them going and passionate, so that they can be living a life that they love. And then imagine people living a life doing what they love, what that world will feel like, where everything that is being created from the heart, right? Our hands are extensions of the heart, and we create with our hands. And when we're creating disconnected from our heart, and not only that, but we are frustrated and we are resentful and we are angry and we are sad and depressed and desperate and feeling hopeless, then everything that we are creating from that space is contributing those energies into the world. So I just want to help co-create, as I know all of you listening do as well, a world where we really know that we absolutely can create a life that we love, doing what we love. And yes, it is going to be probably quite a journey to unhook from the matrix, right? To unplug from those false senses of security because they feel very real. It takes courage. It takes support from others. It takes a willingness to persevere as we unhook and release and dissolve those layers that we've been attached to, that have been serving us up until now, that have been keeping us alive, right? Meeting our survival needs. This is all very valid. And I believe we're at a point in our evolution as a people, as a planet, where we have everything we need on this planet. We have everything that we need. We have all of the resources, all of the intelligence, all of the awareness. It's just not distributed fairly or equally, right? It's not readily available to the majority of people. And we know the causes for this, right? I mean, we're all traumatized on a level of having been so disconnected from the land, from our roots, from our lineages, from our culture, from who we be as a people, from our inherent connection to nature. So I believe we're all traumatized because we've been disconnected and uprooted. And so then we have a bunch of traumatized people running around, most of them probably not even knowing that they're traumatized because this isn't spoken about or normalized yet. It is definitely being more spoken about. And a lot of these people are running the countries and running the world, and they are acting from a place of fear and scarcity because they're not connected with themselves, with their true source that is infinite and abundant. And so they feel that they need to hoard resources, money, power, that they need to control others because they are afraid of losing their ability to survive in this world. And when you are acting from that place, no matter how much you have, it'll never be enough because you don't feel enough deep inside. You don't feel connected to your heart. And so it doesn't matter how much money, how much control, how many countries that you need to take over and dominate and colonize. There's always the next thing and the next thing, because deep down there is that sense of emptiness, of not feeling nurtured and nourished by oneself. And we are the only ones who can truly fulfill and satisfy that deep inner yearning for love, for acceptance, for belonging. Let's take a breath. This is quite a fun little tangent. This is how it goes. We just flow with what's coming through and trusting the medicine of spirit speaking through me and what wants to be shared. This podcast has been such medicine for me, even just having launched it a couple weeks ago. I get to continue to notice my attachments for how and when I want things to be done, and how seriously I can take things sometimes, rather than just laughing when the computer is crashing or, any number of technical difficulties or mishaps. I and releasing attachment to, yes, having an idea about what I want to share, and then releasing it, right? And allowing spirit to move through me and share what's present in the moment versus following a specific itinerary or script. So my intention today is to share with you my story, and maybe we'll get to some of it. Let's just see what happens. Okay. Coming back. Acting, right? My love for acting since I was 4 years old. That's what I was going to do. That's what I was going to be and do with my life, was be an actor. And I remember feeling so proud and happy when I was in high school and everyone else is like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I was like, well, I know what I'm going to do. I was just so set on that. There's another side. Well, there's many sides, but another side to it is also the shadow side of my desire to want to be an actor. There was that very pure desire to express myself, my creativity, my life force through that art form, to be able to explore and to get inside of all of these different characters and express different parts of myself and explore the depths of what it means to be human. And there's definitely the part of me that was desperate to be seen, to be recognized, to be validated. And I thought, well, if I do this, then I can prove to everyone, to myself, to my parents, how worthy I am, how beautiful I am, how brilliant and capable I am. And so it's not black and white. Those intentions were interlaced, interwoven. So I pursued acting up until, well, I was pursuing acting up through, 5 years ago? I was born in Los Angeles. My family moved when I was 4, so I grew up in Southwest Florida from age 4 until 16. I was always taking acting classes, going to acting camps and in school plays and performances. And when I was 16, I had this opportunity to move back to Los Angeles and to pursue acting. And so I did that. And there's just like so much here. Well, I moved to Los Angeles, pursuing acting. And shortly after moving to Los Angeles, I fell in love for the first time and totally just became so engrossed in that love, in that infatuation, in this other person. And here begins another life theme for me, which is losing myself in other people and becoming obsessed with love. And ultimately, now, as I'm learning more about it, receiving that love, that attention, that validation that I didn't fully receive to the extent that I wanted as a child growing up. even though my parents are extremely loving and caring and so supportive, so supportive. Of course, they are human and they were doing the best that they knew how with what they had. And as most parents are not fully educated on emotional intelligence and how to create a truly safe and nourishing environment for their children, especially emotionally, because they didn't have that. Ultimately, I was left feeling deprived of that and feeling unseen in the ways that I really wanted as a child. So, this has led to a whole set of amazing qualities and attributes of me seeking to heal that through my relationships for the remainder of my life thus far. And I've only recently begun to really unpack this and what this means. We'll come back to this. So, moved to Los Angeles, pursuing acting, met my first partner, fell in love. And also want to say about this is that going perfectly with everything I'm speaking to is before this, I had never had a boyfriend. And that was a big source of suffering for me as a teenage girl who was seeing her friends start to date and have boyfriends and couple up. And I was just always beside myself wondering, why don't boys like me? How come I don't have a boyfriend? And just, I remember ever since I was very young, just deeply yearning for love and romance. And I remember, I would cry myself to sleep listening to Whitney Houston breakup songs. And I would cry because I didn't know what it felt like to be in love. So I didn't know what it felt like to have your heart broken. But I was heartbroken that I didn't know what that felt like because I wanted to feel that depth of emotion and experience. A little background on Lil Lex. Oh, getting real here. Guess that's the whole point of this. Yeah. So I was always really upset that boys didn't like me. And it goes back even further. When I was younger, okay, let's even go back. When I was younger, I remember, because this is a really kind of core piece of my journey and my story that I have lived with and been transforming and been growing through this shadow of not feeling lovable, of not feeling liked, of not feeling a sense of belonging when all I wanted was to belong and to love everybody and to just have friends and best friends and just play and have a good time. I remember growing up that oftentimes I would be really disappointed in my friendships since a very young age. I remember like 6, 7 years old crying because I would have a play date with a friend and they would call and cancel. And I would be left out of different girl groups and meetings and I just didn't understand, like, why was I not included? Why was I not being invited? And who knows what the reasons for that truly were, other than it perfectly being set up for me to experience that pain and that story, because I believe this is something that I have come here to help transmute, not only for myself, but on behalf of other beings, and to be able to share this with you now, because I'm sure so many of you can relate. And again, a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was having this experience of not feeling accepted, and then I was just running it through my being, running it through my brain. Why don't people like me? Why don't people like me? Why don't people like me? And like, right? And the way that becomes a mantra. And then what you're focused on, what you're thinking about, what you believe is an energy, has an energy signature and a frequency. And then that becomes something that I am transmitting and radiating out almost as a script. And so when other beings are coming into my field, if I'm playing the role of the one who isn't lovable, who is too weird, or that people don't like me, then as a powerful creator being that we all are, and that is what I was unconsciously at the time, yet perhaps on a soul level consciously choosing to play that role, then I'm already casting the other characters that are coming into my life because I'm emitting this frequency. And then what is going to be available to come into my field, what I'm available to receive from other people is only going to be something that's going to match that, right? It's like I'm going to vibrate and I'm going to attract the perfect cast, the perfect co-stars to help me play that role and to fulfill that story. I really believe we are this powerful. And perhaps another point we can break it down even more. I am super novice amateur with quantum physics, yet I feel it and I get it on a deep intuitive level. It just makes sense based on things I've experienced and how I've seen my life operate. So here I am running this script, right? Why don't people like me? So that's also going to affect how I show up in life, right? It's going to affect my posture, my body language, how I approach other people. This was the seed of something that just continued to fester and grow. And this wasn't the only role that I played, but this is definitely a major theme for me in my life is this feeling of not feeling good enough, of feeling like the weirdo, of feeling left out. And yeah, that just the cool people are over there and I'm over here. And for whatever reason, I'm missing something. Something's wrong with me, right? Like something's wrong with me. Like, I don't know what it is, what's wrong with me, but something is wrong with me. And this also goes back to the family dynamics where when our parents, based on their conditioning and their programming, don't know how to fully accept us for who we be because they weren't allowed to fully be themselves, right? Their parents were controlling them and constantly sending messages and signals verbally, psychically, physically that who they were was not enough. It wasn't good enough, that they needed to dress in a certain way, act in a certain way, speak in a certain way in order to have the family look good, to fit in, to belong, right? There it is again. It's just like this deep human desire, this need to belong, and all these weird distortions that come out of it. So, because they were programmed in that way, that's the program that they're running, that's what they know. And then here we come along, and what's going to happen? Well, they're going to pass that down because that's what they know. Looking back, now I can see how I was receiving the message that I needed to be something, someone in a particular way, like don't be too loud, don't be too wild, especially, I mean, all of us have it. So I don't even want to say especially women, but women have specifically the programming of the like, be a good girl and be pretty and nice and all of that. And how we've been so disconnected from our wild feminine and our raw sensuality and sexuality and our blood, our menstruation, and giving our blood back to the earth and just being able to roam free and wild in our power without being judged or criticized for being a slut or judged or criticized for being a prude, right? So that's for women, a little brief snapshot. And then equally, men have been shut down because their feminine has been repressed and they haven't been allowed either to feel their feelings, right? And their emotions and all these distortions that happen when we aren't allowed and given the space to fully feel the full range of our human emotions and experience, which is just human nature. It's natural. We are emotive beings, and our emotions is where our power is. It is where our life force and our energy, it is communication. It is what adds depth and beauty to our existence. And so when all of that is repressed and it's shut down, and we're given the message that we can't feel what we're feeling, that it's wrong, we take that inwards and we feel like something is wrong with us because we're having this experience, these feelings. Our body is telling us one thing, and yet our caregivers, these godlike beings to us, are telling us another, and they're probably not embodying their emotions and their experience. And so then we also create a story of like, well, everyone else seems to have it figured out. Everyone else seems to be okay. Everyone else seems to have figured something out that I haven't. It's like, what's wrong with me? And we're all secretly suffering alone because we're not allowed to talk about it and nobody's talking about it. So we don't actually realize that everyone else is also going through the same experience, some variation. It's crazy. It's crazy town. It's just so wild. And I'm just so grateful for where we are in our evolution in this moment, because these topics and these themes are being brought to the light right now. Is just so amazing to see how the awareness of the mind-body connection and the intelligence of the body and all of the rewilding and the remembrance of connecting with the land and these ancient practices of celebrating life through our creative expression are coming back online and rippling through the collective. And I am here as another voice to amplify this remembrance and this message, because maybe I'll reach you. Maybe I'll reach someone that hasn't yet fully been exposed to this. And even if you have, I know for myself, I can use all the reminders that I can get, because once again, the predominant vibration and the predominant narrative up until now has been the antithesis, right? Has been this culture of repression. So we can absolutely have as many speakers and voices singing these songs of serenading us and calling us home into who we really are as wild, magical, mystical lovers and poets and stewards of this land. And even if you don't identify with any of those things, I say there's a wild lover, a wild ecstatic inside of each of us, whether you express that through whatever your profession is. We all have a genius, and I feel like there is something about genius that is inherently mad. It defies expectation, it defies norms, it defies conformity, because it is about us bringing in something new into this world that hasn't ever been here before, through our unique channel, through our unique lens, expressing it in our unique way. It requires being mad. Because what does it mean to be mad in a world that is insane, right? Actually, I think we are the sane ones. And we are supporting this birthing process of this earth moving from one paradigm into the next, where we are waking up, we are remembering, we are coming back home to our bodies, home to the land, home to one another, to our soul families, to coming out of our isolated boxes of our houses and the ways that we've been living that have kept us separate. We are coming out, just seeing the way festival culture has been exploding over the last, 10, 15, 20 years. I believe that says so much about what we as humans just crave and long for at a deep soul level, to gather together, to do our work together, whether that's our inner work or our outer work, building things on the land, celebrating, dancing, and playing together, raising babies together, right? We weren't meant to do this alone. And again, we have everything we need, all of the resources. And if we can come together in a way that is efficient and support one another so that we don't have to do all of the things alone, we can cook for one another, we can take care of one another's children, we can work on the land together and share in that. It's just not only going to be so much more fulfilling for us, it is what is going to allow for sustainability of living on this planet, by being able to live in harmony with the intelligence of nature, with the elegant design of nature, which is synergistic, symbiotic, collaborative, cooperative. Look at nature. Everything is working together in some form or another. Everything is interconnected. And the moment that we begin to build walls and cage ourselves off, we lose who we are. We lose what it means to be human. Let's take a deep breath now. So where were we? We are here. We are now. Just noticing what you're feeling in your body. Yeah. That old story. That old story of not being good enough. Quite the planetary epidemic. It's interesting. I'm at this really unique moment, as I feel you can relate, where I'm crossing yet again another threshold and releasing old identities. And as I share this story, which is probably a good thing I'm sharing it now, because I'm already feeling rather disconnected from it, which is amazing because this has been a story that I've been carrying for so long. This story rooted in victim consciousness, right? Of not being enough. So that was my story. That was my story for a long time, since I was little. And then I was in high school and couldn't get a boyfriend. And then so when I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue my passion, I very quickly met a boy, a young man, and fell head over heels. First time being in love. You know how that goes. And I had been dreaming of that moment for so long. And I went. And my focus on acting, and I was going to community college. I was 16. Just forget about it. I was just focused on this love and experiencing just the beauty of what that feels like to be in love for the first time. Oh, all the chemicals and the hormones and not to devalue it, also just the beautiful, deep connection with another being. And this being certainly is a soulmate of mine. And this is a whole story. I'm like debating how much of it do we get into right now. I think what I'm feeling is that's going to be its own. It's going to be its own episode. What I'll say for right now is fell in love, and that became my main focus in my life, this relationship, which, right, this is very common for those of us that are not fully rooted and centered within our being, knowing ourselves, to lose ourselves in another and to make that other person our prime source, our primary source of love and nurturance and sustenance, validation, and attention. I definitely fell in love. My website is Rising in Love Awakening, and I definitely fell in love. I lost myself completely, and there's something so beautiful about that. I believe that's part of the human experience, to have that experience of losing ourselves and the hopeless romantic and all of that. That is so valid, so valid. And once that isn't fulfilling anymore, then we get to write a new script and take on a new character and write a new story. So I was really loving that. I was definitely fully in that. As a teenager, I was very emo on the inside and goth on the outside. I was a wide variety of things. Again, I don't like to be put into a box. You know, one day I would show up to school wearing all black and lipstick, and then the other day some sort of like Victorian vintage outfit, and the next day hippie, and constantly exploring all these different archetypes. But I feel with my Scorpio rising, if we want to go into that narrative of astrology, I could definitely really relate with that Scorpio rising, that ascendant. And if you're not familiar, your rising or your ascendant is often how people perceive you. And another way it's been described to me is if your sun sign, your main sign that you would think of, which I'm a Taurus in Western, is who you be, the driver in the car, well, then the car you drive is your ascendant. That's how you move through life. That's the lens through which you look through life. And definitely resonates. And it actually explained a lot to me because, again, with my fascination for psychology and what makes people tick, and always wanting to get to the bottom of things and always questioning the universe and seeking to understand, and always having a very existentialist point of view since a very young age. When I was younger, it was something that I felt depressed by. I definitely experienced a lot of depression in my early teenage to later teenage and so on years. Definitely my teenage years were some of the hardest because of some of the things that I mentioned of just seeking for this belonging and just wondering like what is wrong with me. Just wanting that love and that connection so badly from my peers at school, really recognizing how I believe we all are. And I am certainly a very communal being. I just thrive in community and in a community where I feel really seen and cherished and understood and accepted. And, all the things, of course, that we want. Maybe we can talk more about my family later. I grew up in really amazing, fascinating dynamics of my mother being Puerto Rican and Palestinian, right? My grandfather from Jordan. So huge Arabic extended side of the family. And then my mom grew up in Puerto Rico. A huge Puerto Rican side of the family that I would spend a lot of time with growing up, going to Puerto Rico, visiting for summers. And then my father is American born, probably third generation of German and English, Scottish descent. Two different contrasting cultures all mixed together to make this unique expression that is me. Yeah, so there's a lot of me feeling a part of a lot of different things, yet at the same time, never really feeling a part of any of them. I wasn't fully the white girl growing up in Florida, and I would go to Puerto Rico, and there I was the white girl. I was the gringa. So it's like this interesting dynamic of, back to the belonging. It's like, where do I fit in? And even that expression, fit in. We're not made to fit in. We're made to stand out, to shine bright. All of these things play into the co-creation of this narrative of wondering, where do I belong? Which I share my story, but I know that you have your version of this story. I want you to know that you are not alone. Depending where you are on your journey, I remind you that it does get better, that it does become more easeful, and that there will come a point when you do feel that you belong, first and foremost, to yourself, to your own being, and to the earth, wherever you may be, to the earth as a whole, to this planet, and to this cosmos, to this life, to this universe, and to all beings, to all people. We are one big family. And we belong to one another. We share the same breath. We share the same heartbeat. We share this planet. And we share all of the same collective wounds. They express themselves in a myriad of ways and unique expressions, yet ultimately, the core wound is all the same. Back to this feeling of not enoughness, of this original wound of separation from our mothers, from our mother's womb, from the great mother, the great cosmic mother, from coming into these physical vessels, into this density, into this matter, and everything that has come from that. All of the pain and ways that we've compensated and that we've attempted to manage and navigate our suffering with some really wild ways of avoiding and escaping, or at least trying to escape. So much of our current culture is based on distraction, and essentially majority of it is designed to distract us from feeling our feelings, right? Because our feelings are our source of power. And if we are feeling what we're feeling, well, that's that's a whole rabbit hole. I'll just say when we're feeling what we're feeling and we're connected to our feelings, then we're not easily controlled. And then we are connected to our passions and our desires. And then we will create our own path of what we want to do versus feeding into a system to support just the endless, consumption and consumerism. While it can feel really dark at times to contemplate the current status of world affairs, when we zoom out on a large enough level, it makes sense. It's all understandable. And we can see this narrative that is unfolding, and we can know it very personally in our own lives, the microcosm and the macrocosm, as above, so below, as within, so without, is all a holographic reflection. We can understand and begin to cultivate compassion for how things are the way that they are. We can see those qualities in world leaders that perhaps we despise. We can begin to locate them within ourselves and see that we also have those traits, and perhaps we exhibit them in different ways. Maybe we exhibit them only towards ourselves and not towards another. We all have the capacity to do horrendous things and the capacity to be the most embodied expression of love and kindness, compassion and care. We all have the full expression, the full spectrum of what it is to be human. It's all understandable when you consider our need to survive and the things that we will do in order to ensure our survival. Let's take another deep breath. I'm recognizing that this journey is very circular and spirally, and not linear. And that's perfect. I'm letting it be perfect. The part of me that feels that this story is supposed to unfold in a linear fashion of this happened and then this happened and then this happened. I'm letting that go right now. Just real time processing. I'm sharing with you and trusting in the medicine of what is coming through, that it's being shared in exactly the way that it's meant to be shared. So let us circle back. I'm I'm seeing how I'm sharing my personal story, and then that gives me an avenue to be able to zoom out and reflect how it relates to the larger narrative of humanity. And then we get to come back in. So we're going to go back in. I'm going to speak to another common theme in my life that is connected with the not enoughness, and that is the theme of having felt trapped. I remember also from a very young age having a level of awareness of myself, of my existence, and questioning my existence, wondering, how did I get here? How did I get here? Where do I come from? How did I get in this body? And because I was experiencing a lot of darkness, probably because I didn't feel that I was able to fully express myself, I remember feeling trapped by the idea of school. I loved to learn, but I hated having to wake up at a certain time every day to go to school and feeling forced by these two beings, my parents, to do this thing that I didn't want to do. And yes, I enjoyed many parts of it. And overall, it really did not vibe with me. I always fantasize about traveling the world and learning and studying with different mentors, which I have been able to do to an extent. But that very militarized version of education definitely was not vibing with my soul and the way that she wanted to be able to be freely expressed and to be more fluid and organic in the way that I learn. And I remember just the concept of thinking, I have how many more years of this? It was just horrifying. It was just horrifying. So, this feeling of feeling trapped in a body, feeling trapped where I was, remember just not being able to feel connected to very much, to not myself, not the earth, not nature, where I grew up in Florida, very safe, was suburbia, and it was the community housing of here are all the cookie cutter houses. Here is the fake grass and the perfect palm trees, and there's nothing wild where I was, where I grew up. And I believe that this very much shaped my relationship to nature, or my lack of relationship to nature, because I wasn't in a natural environment to really be able to understand the beauty and the wildness of nature. My relationship to nature was like, there's a tree, there's some grass. Okay, I don't feel any connection to it. Not until later in my life. So I felt trapped in this body and experiencing my depression, and just like, I didn't ask to be here. Like, why am I here? I didn't ask to be here. And just, oh my gosh, going back there right now, I was so tormented at times, tormenting myself with none of the tools or the awareness that I have now and that I've learned. And it didn't make sense to me. Didn't make sense to me. Life and the life I was experiencing, it didn't make sense to me. I didn't see people around me being truly fulfilled or happy. I didn't see any examples of relationships that were functional and truly nourishing and nurturing. Things just felt really dysfunctional and dismal. Again, it's not black and white. There's a lot of beauty and a lot of amazing, fun times with my family and in school. It was very back and forth for me. Felt very bipolar of some moments of such pure joy and ecstasy and silliness, and then coming home and just feeling really depressed and disconnected, feeling trapped. And this has carried with me up until very recently, until I did Vipassana a year and a half ago. It was in Vipassana, sitting in this silent meditation retreat for 10 days, that I really got to face off with my feeling of being trapped in a body, feeling trapped at school. And then later on, it was feeling trapped in a relationship. And no matter what I was doing, I was feeling trapped. I was feeling trapped in a job. I was feeling trapped not being in a job because I didn't have the resources that I wanted to experience freedom. And at some point, I get to recognize, okay, how am I creating this for myself? How am I creating and living out this narrative of constantly feeling trapped? For a lot of my life, especially the younger years, I just really didn't want to be here. It wasn't pleasant. Didn't feel exciting. I didn't feel inspired. I didn't feel connected. Felt really lonely. I share because these are my shadow gifts. These are the wounds that I've been bestowed to alchemize into what is being alchemized now and has been being alchemized over the last many years, that I have been able to have a deeper awareness and understanding of how the very thing that is my greatest source of suffering is my greatest gift. Because as I am able to dive into myself and my process, then I'm able to share the fruits of my labor with you. I'm able to walk through the fire, walk through my own valley of death, and let you know that I can relate, that I know what it feels like to not want to be here, that life isn't fun, that what's the reason, what's the purpose, why even bother? And I have been able to discover and access such great joy and inspiration and beauty and magic and wonder and awe through a variety of different catalytic moments of my life, through this journey that I've been on for the last, I'm 31, I'll be 31 very soon, for the last, 20 years. Whoa. I can say that now. That's pretty amazing. And it just gets better and better. I believe that and I create that and I live by that. And this is one of my core beliefs that I share with you. it just gets better and better because every day, every year, I come home even more deeply to myself. And I've been able to discover who I really am. And it's this beautiful gift of unfolding, of blossoming. And because my beginnings on this earth were so challenging for me, internally, emotionally, right? Externally, you could say I had it all. I was very blessed to grow up in a middle class family. And yet, I was suffering on the inside. And I am a voice for those of you that can relate to this because I don't have the story like my mother of growing up very poor and having to really make her way in that particular fashion. That's not my story. I can't relate to that. I spoke to this on the first episode that this very dynamic has created a lot of shame for me because for the longest time I couldn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling because there was no apparent reason why I would be feeling depressed. And now I understand that it's not just about having the security of a home and food on the table, that equally vital is emotional nourishment and unconditional love for a growing child to know that they are perfect, whole, and complete just as they are. Perfect, whole, and complete, and not finished. That how and who they are is divine and welcomed and fully embraced versus repressed or shamed in some unconscious or conscious way. When we receive the message that our emotions are not normal, that our expression is too much, or that something must be wrong with us because we have these intense emotions as very creative beings that we all are. When our very nature is being denied, that creates such an inner conflict and such a fragmentation where we begin to repress those parts of ourselves and begin to create this false self to compensate, to show up, to be who we think we need to be in order to receive that love, that validation. This is the story of becoming who we always were, who we've always been. This is the journey of becoming undomesticated. This is the journey of healing our ancestral lineage, of being the ones to break the chain, to break the cycle, to reclaim our power, our sovereignty, our truth as expressive, creative, magical beings, feeling it all and learning how to be with it all, learning how to be with our emotions and our feelings. We were taught what to think, but we weren't taught how to use this powerful tool that is our mind. And I, like many of us, have misused this powerful tool to work against myself, to doubt myself, to spend my imaginative energy and life force, imagining the things that I didn't want to happen, to worry, to obsess on things going wrong and wondering what was going to go wrong next, rather than believing and having trust and faith in a kind universe that is conspiring in my favor, that everything is happening for me, not to me. This is the journey from victim consciousness to creator consciousness. And we are all waking up on this journey in our own way, in our own unique timing. And there are so many beautiful layers and nuances to it. And I continue to discover every day limiting beliefs and ways that I am holding myself back, shaming myself, making myself wrong. And along the journey, I'm able to do it with greater grace and play, and again, not taking it all so seriously and being so hard on myself and applying that harsh criticism to my spiritual path, trying to be the perfect student, the perfect spiritual student, and instead allowing the journey and the process to be messy, to be raw, to be real. Coming back to my journey with acting, coming back to Los Angeles, I was in a relationship with my first partner for about 7 years. I thought he was the one, and he was. He was the one for that time. I was certainly in the fantasy that we would be together forever. And we were together for quite a while, for being my first love, my first partner. And again, that is a podcast unto itself that I will be sharing more about my journey with relationship, which is a huge theme for me and a big passion and joy because of all of the heartache and heartbreak that I've experienced, and my deep desire for union, sacred union, for deep, intimate connection, authentic connection. I've experienced the opposite of that. I've experienced great frustration and desperation in the realm of love and romance. And again, this is one of my shadow gifts, the shadow keys that I get to unlock the possibility of authentic relating, of what it really means to be in authentic relation and intimate connection with another soul, whether they are my romantic partner or not. Here I am with this partner, and while I was mostly focused on the relationship and an entire world that we created around us, we ended up becoming community leaders. And on my 21st birthday, a festival was birthed, and that became a big part of our lives, creating this community gathering. It's one of my deep loves, bringing people together and providing a platform where people can share their gifts. And I just love connecting people and bridging the worlds and the tribes and weaving the communities together. That is a deep, deep love and passion and source of joy and fulfillment. So that was a big focus. And I ended up modeling. My modeling career ended up taking precedence over my pursuit of acting, while I continued to audition here and there and take acting classes. For now, what I'll share is that because of my deep insecurity and my lack of self esteem and self worth, I was caught in so many self sabotaging behaviors, which prevented me from fully pursuing my craft and really going for it. Looking back, I can create all sorts of stories that, and I do deeply believe all is exactly as it's meant to be and all has unfolded perfectly. If I would have reached some level of success in the film industry with the consciousness that I had, with zero sense of self, zero inner strength, and self regulation, I would have just been destroyed by drugs and addictions and what fame could have done, all of that. Like, definitely very, very grateful that that did not unfold at that point in time. And yet I carried a lot of shame because here my whole life, this is the one thing that I knew I wanted to do, that I love to do. And I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it, but I was modeling, and that became my primary profession for many, many years, for about a decade. That was fulfilling in many, many ways because I still got to express creatively these different archetypal embodiments. And it is an aspect of acting. It's just, you're embodying for the frame. There's no dialogue or larger narrative, but I still got to fulfill that creative desire to share my deep capacity to emote and to translate emotion and depth through my photos. Fast forwarding a little bit, 5 years ago, I was 26, and I reached a point where things just weren't working out anymore. I was living in Los Angeles, and at this point, I had already broken up with my partner that I had been with for the 7 years. And I was getting kicked out of the house that I was living in, this guest house, and I had crashed my car, and I was partying, and my body was rejecting all of the partying and the lack of nourishment and self-care. And I just reached this point where I knew things had to change. And it was in that moment that I realized I was done waiting to be chosen by a partner, by a director. I was done waiting to live my life. I was done waiting to get this perfect role, to be able to express in the way that I wanted to. I was going to take it into my own hands and live my life as the grand sci-fi fantasy adventure film that I would want to play in. This life is the play. And that was a really pivotal moment for me where I cut my hair. I had long black hair for a long time, and I never modified my look very much because I always wanted to be accessible for roles and for gigs. And in that moment, I cut my hair short, platinum blonde. I'd always wanted to do that, but my dad never let me when I was younger in high school. And it was this empowering moment of choosing my own destiny and saying, I'm not waiting for something outside to give me the permission to be who I want to be. And at that point, I'd already had a series of really magical and wild experiences of what I call waking up in the matrix that we'll talk more about. Waking up in the matrix and discovering my multi-dimensional self, and that there is so much more going on than what we can just see with our senses, our five senses, and that all of the things that I wanted to believe in when I was younger are absolutely real and true. And I'd had enough of these experiences where I just couldn't deny it anymore. Although I still did a little bit, but they continued and they still continue. It's amazing to once again think about the power of the stories that we tell and how they shape our lives. At some point, we choose to become the author of our lives rather than just playing out the script that's been handed down to us. Thank you. It served me very well. I'm ready for something else. I'm ready to align with my highest joy and excitement and truth of who I be. And you become too large for that old shell, for that old skin. And we shed that skin like a snake, like a serpent sheds their skin. And we do this again and again and again and again throughout our lives. I've had so many deep, powerful, transformational rebirth moments again and again and again. And it continues to blow my mind and my heart that it just continues. There is no end. There is no arriving at some final destination, just this continual unfoldment and evolution and exploration, and expansion, and then deeper contraction, and then expansion again. May you know how beautiful you are. May you know that no matter what you've gone through, what you've suffered, that your pain, your mess is your message. That within the shadow lies the gift. That everything that has happened in your life has happened for you. As I share my story, I would not be who I am today. I would not be sitting here sharing this story with you of this metamorphosis, of this young, insecure, very depressed, disconnected, broken feeling girl who is now blossoming into this woman who most of the time feels very peaceful, grounded, present. I used to be always lost in my mind, thinking about the past, obsessing about other people, relationships, what I could have done differently, obsessing about what other people think about me. And it's only until recently that through devotion and commitment to keep showing up to the path, even though I've fallen off, one could say, I believe it's all the path, but I've had so many, you could call it relapses into my old ways of being. It's normal. That's completely normal. That's to be expected. It's not about how many times we fall down or the failures that we have. If you keep going, if you keep showing up, eventually you will succeed in whatever it is that you're wanting to succeed in. And for me, I realize my greatest goal is self-mastery and self-awareness so that I can be the best version of myself that I can be, so that I can be an inspiration to everyone around me. Because how can I help anyone else if I can't help myself, if I have all these amazing thoughts and ideas and beliefs and philosophies, but I'm not embodying them and I'm not happy and they're not serving me, no one's going to want to listen. Why would they listen to me if I'm not happy? That's what happened to me with my parents. They follow this path, do this, go to school, do the thing. They mean well. But I was so resistant to following their guidance because I didn't see them in their joy, in their fulfillment. And so I'm going, why would I do that? Like, you don't seem to know the way. So I need to figure something else out. I need to find my own path to to the effect of driving them crazy because bless them, they just want me to be well and safe and taken care of. And I have chosen a path that there is no security in the traditional sense of the word. I am living my life moment by moment, guided by spirit. It doesn't make any sense in the common way of viewing sense and logic and reason, yet it makes the most sense to me and my being and my body way more than anything else does. It feels so right. I feel aligned with my being and my truth. And often when we follow our truth, we follow our heart, we will find it will take us away from the crowd. It will take us away from mass consciousness because those of us that are on the forefront of waking up are the first ones to awaken and remember the old ways, the old new ways, the ancient futuristic ways of living our life and creating a new paradigm for society, for business, for relationship, for creativity and expression that is rooted in joy, that is rooted in abundance consciousness, that is rooted in creating from joy and sovereignty, free from agenda, free from any sense of coercion or manipulation, or control over anyone else, including ourselves. This is radical. This is completely radical, and you will feel like you are losing your mind and going insane. And in some ways, you could say that's happening. What is this quote? What does it mean to be sane in an insane world? We are the rebels. We are the change makers. We are the psychedelic sheep of the family. We are the ones we have been waiting for. So much more to share with you. Thank you so much for being here with me, for listening. Deep bow of honor to you for walking this path. I intend that we continue to find one another, support one another in our journey. And the more that we can come together, the stronger we are. And that has been a saving grace to find other souls who have gone through such parallel pathways and have come to the same awarenesses and realizations. It's just so beautiful, so incredible that there's something happening here. If you grew up in this part of the world and you grew up in this part of the world and we had our different lives, our different families, yet we're all coming to this same awareness. There's something to be said about that. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of a revolution that is being had, of a rebirth, of this beautiful blossoming. Let us trust in the divine unfoldment and the divine timing of all that is taking place. While it can seem like so much, especially we're in the throes of just beginning to have the veils being lifted, know that everything is unfolding just as it's meant. One of the greatest lessons that I've learned, that I'm learning, that has helped me the most is to accept where I am on my path, to fully accept, to get honest with myself about where I am. And that's a process because when you don't have certain awarenesses about what's going on in your field, you don't know that you're projecting to be somewhere else than you are. That was a big lesson that I learned about 2 years ago. I had a mentor who asked me, "Why do you feel like you need to be somewhere else than you are? Why do you feel this need to present this image of being here when there's parts of you that are way back here that are still waiting to catch up and to integrate?" And I was so grateful to her because I had no idea that I was doing that, and thus began a deeper layer of integration and coming out of denial and self honesty that, yes, while there are aspects of me that are highly evolved, as there are with you, there are also aspects of me, my inner children, that had been left behind. And there was this disparity between the two, and that created this fragmentation and this distortion. And what I see now looking back could be perceived as inauthenticity because I wasn't integrated, right? It's like there's this part of me that's operating in the world and being able to manage and kind of force my way to fake it till you make it. But deep inside was and is continuing to be healed and integrated. A lot of trauma, a lot of trauma from the things I've described from the early years of what can be described as complex PTSD, which is there wasn't a singular event that happened. It was a consistent emotional neglect, a consistent message that was being received by me as a child that something was wrong with me. And the impact that that has on how one views themselves and shows up in the world and interacts with other beings, and how they're able to or not able to have healthy relationships. I'm so, so grateful for this woman that reflected that to me. Shortly thereafter, I sat in Vipassana and I started attending 12-step meetings for ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And that was a huge, humbling moment where I was able to get really real with myself about where I was. And yes, how far I have to go. The journey is ever unfolding, but it just felt so a huge sigh of relief because I finally was able to shine a light on why I was still struggling so much, but I didn't understand because I had done so many different workshops and leadership self-development programs, sitting in different plant medicine ceremonies and various other healing modalities that have deeply benefited me and supported me in my journey, have all been necessary and contributed to my growth and my path. Yet I felt like something wasn't sticking. I just kept looping and looping and looping, and something wasn't getting through. And I didn't understand because there I was back again feeling like, what am I missing? It seems like everyone else is getting it, but I'm still missing something. And it's because that deeper root of trauma wasn't being spoken about in these circles that I was, or it just wasn't a large enough or a long enough of a container to address it. and the way that is needed to really do this work can be really slow moving. It can be quick, but to release the need for the quick fix, right? To release the need of like doing this program in one weekend and boom, everything's going to be transformed. Realizing, at least for me and my construct, that just perpetuated more of this healing and fixing loop because I felt like something was wrong, that I wasn't having the results that were being promised. And one of the deep pieces of wisdom that I've learned and been embodying is to slow down, to slow down, to release the rush. There's no rush. Rushing is a subtle form of violence on the body and the psyche. To give myself all the time and all the space that I need to heal, to integrate, to allow for that grace, to trust myself enough, to trust my body that it will heal when I just give it the space that it needs. When I stop constantly filling my time trying to fix myself, that I can just allow nature to take over and release my micromanaging of the universe using this modality, using that modality. Once again, here I am still trying to control everything. And I've realized that that is actually the greatest addiction I believe that we have as humans, is our addiction to control. And when we can begin to soften and to surrender control, which can take time to build this trust with ourself and with life. When we've not received the evidence that we can trust life or others, it's really scary to say, hey, just surrender control. It's terrifying. So slowly, baby steps is what works for me. And that was a huge turning point. Giving myself the permission to fully be where I was allowed me to really begin to take the healing journey in a completely new way that felt embodied, that felt sustainable, and that just felt aligned and truthful and rooted in something real, and not just getting lost in various spiritual narratives and belief systems and ideologies that I love. I am such a huge nerd and a geek for all things galactic, spiritual, esoteric. I love it. It's so exciting, fascinating to me. And there came a point when I realized holding on to those beliefs was inhibiting my growth because I was using them as a crutch to avoid just being with what is, being with the reality of the present moment. And I was spiritually bypassing my pain and my emotions by skipping to this idea of spiritual perfection where, yes, we are all one and I have compassion for everyone and I can understand what everybody's going through. So I was bypassing my own anger, my own frustrations, not honoring my boundaries, not honoring my process. I was giving everyone else more compassion than I was giving myself, if that's even possible. I'm sure it wasn't even an authentic form of compassion, more so people pleasing. I'm so grateful to be here in this moment and to just humbly share that I am very much in my recovery process. And it came through really clearly for me creating this podcast that I'm not here to be another coach, teacher, presenting an image of one who has it all together, because I don't right now. I have a lot of gems. I have a lot of deep infrastructure that I've been building. It's still very new, considering all things. But I've done a lot of deconstruction work, and I am grateful for my willingness and my courage to admit that I don't know. There's so much that I don't know. And I'm always willing to consider a perspective offered from someone else, to receive a reflection about something that I can't see about myself. And if there is something that I feel that I'm really good at, it is being willing to see how I can improve and show up in a more integrous way in my relations, and to try on a new perspective. And I'm hungry for that. I love that. On a deep level, I believe I love being wrong, because not oftentimes on a surface level, on an ego level, but on a deep soul level, I love being wrong, because it means there's something that I don't know that I get to discover newly. And that means that the way I've been experiencing life gets to expand. And those limitations and those blockages and those perceived obstacles, if there's something that I don't know, then there's a way that I can see it in a new way, and then I can transform it. But if I already know all there is to know, and I'm having the experience I'm having, and I'm not feeling deeply fulfilled, well, then fuck. So I want to see what I can't see. I want to be shown the truth of what I can't see. And this is the beauty of relationship, that we get to be mirrors for one another, and that we get to reflect to each other both the light and the dark and the full rainbow spectrum in between. And through this reflection, we uplift one another, and we polish one another's mirrors, and we reflect the joy, the magic, the possibility. And together we uplevel. And isn't that what it's all about at the end of the day? Together we rise. Together we grow and we fly. And together we will create this world anew. Create a world that works for everyone, for all beings, to know who they are, to know peace, to know love, to know harmony, to be fully expressed, radically self-expressed in their unique soul's creativity. If I can do it, so can you. Thank you for being here. I love you. I see you. I feel you. I honor you. And I cherish you. Deep love from my heart to yours, beloved. May you know how precious you truly are. And perhaps you'll consider your origin story and see if you begin to see a new storyline that you didn't see before. See how your challenges are your greatest gifts. Your suffering is your access point to your greatest joy and fulfillment. Who is the courageous, badass, superhero, creatrix, warrior, Jedi, magi, wizard that has emerged time and time again from the ashes, reborn through each trial and tribulation? How has each challenge and heartbreak just cracked you open so that you can receive more love and more of your own light? How has it shaped you to who you are today? How has it strengthened you and refined you and reminded you of who you are and what you're truly capable of? Until next time, signing out. In Lakesh, Alakim. I am you, and you are me.